The phone call came Friday evening while I reviewed case briefs. My sister Lauren's voice was cheerful. "Hey Victoria. Heads up. I'm organizing a family reunion at the lake house next weekend. Memorial Day. About 30 people. I sent invitations." I set down my pen. "You're organizing what at my house?" "The lake house. Perfect for family gatherings." I distributed keys to cousins driving up early to prep. Aunt Susan and Uncle Ray are bringing their RV. Oh, and I hired caterers. "I'll Venmo you for your share." She hung up. At 41, I was a federal district court judge for the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. I'd been on the bench 3 years after 15 years as a federal prosecutor. Annual salary, $223,400. Net worth, $4.8 million. My family thought I was a government lawyer who worked at the courthouse. The lake house Lauren was commandeering was custom-built on 40 acres in the Adirondacks. Purchased 5 years ago for $2.1 million. 4 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, private dock, security system. Current value, $2.8 million. It was registered as a federal judge's residence with enhanced security protections under 28 U.S.C. Section 566. Making unauthorized entry a federal offense. My family didn't know because they'd never asked about my actual career. I called my U.S. Marshals liaison. Deputy Marshal James Chin answered immediately. "Judge Mitchell. Everything all right?" My sister organized a 30-person reunion at my lake house without authorization. She distributed keys. "People are arriving this weekend." Brief pause. "At your registered judicial residence?" "Yes." Unauthorized entry into a federal judge's residence is a serious federal offense. If they enter without permission, we'll respond according to protocol. I'm documenting this in advance. I have not and will not authorize any access. I'll flag this and notify the field office near your property. Do you want local law enforcement backup? Please. And James. My sister made key copies. I need locks changed immediately and security updated. Team there tomorrow morning. We'll post notice that it's federal property. Anyone attempting entry after that will be cited immediately. I called my property management company. All locks changed by tomorrow. Previous keys invalidated. New security codes. Then my security provider. I need footage from the past month showing who accessed the property. What I discovered was infuriating. Lauren had visited 4 times in 6 weeks. She brought friends. Hosted parties. Posted Instagram photos calling it, our family retreat. Our family retreat. My $2.8 million property. Saturday morning I drove 5 hours to the lake house. The U.S. Marshals team was there. 2 vehicles for deputies installing new locks and posting federal property notices. Judge Mitchell, Deputy Chin greeted me. We've secured the perimeter. New locks installed. Anyone attempting entry without authorization will be detained and cited. The notices were clear. Federal property residence of U.S. federal judge, unauthorized entry prohibited 28 C Section 566 violators will be prosecuted. How do you want to handle family members with keys? Chin asked. They'll discover they don't work. At that point they're trespassing. Issue citations. Understood. I spent Saturday working remotely and waiting. Lauren called 3 times. I didn't answer. Her voicemails grew annoyed. Victoria, my key isn't working. I have caterers coming Monday. This isn't funny. You can't lock out the family from a family property. Sunday evening Lauren posted in the family group chat. FI Victoria changed locks on the lake house. Incredibly selfish. The house is for the whole family, not just her. We're still having the reunion. I'll figure out access. Mom responded, Lauren, maybe you should have asked Victoria first? Lauren, why? It's the family lake house. She doesn't own it exclusively. Cousin Mark, pretty sure Victoria does own it exclusively. Lauren, that's not the point. Family shares. I forwarded the thread to Deputy Chin. Documentation of planned unauthorized entry. Monday morning, Memorial Day, the first arrivals came. Cousin Jennifer, her husband, 3 kids. I watched security cameras as they tried their key, discovered it didn't work, then tried forcing a window. Deputies emerged from their vehicle. I couldn't hear the conversation, But I saw Jennifer's face go from annoyed to shocked to terrified as deputies explained she was attempting to break into a federal judge's residence. Citations issued. Children crying. Husband arguing. Then Aunt Susan and Uncle Ray in their RV. More deputies. More citations. More shocked faces. By afternoon, Lauren arrived with her husband and my mother. She had a key, confidence, and apparently a prepared speech about family values. She didn't get to deliver it. Hold up. I watched through cameras as Lauren approached with her key, my mother and brother-in-law following. She stopped at the federal property notices. What the hell? Lauren read aloud, Residence of U.S. Federal Judge. This is a mistake. Victoria's not a judge. She's a courthouse lawyer. Mom leaned in. Lauren, this is official federal signage. It's probably a legal technicality to keep us out. The key didn't work. Lauren tried 3 times, increasingly frustrated. Deputy Chin and another marshal emerged. Ma'am, step away. This is federal property. You're trespassing. Lauren spun. Trespassing? This is my family's lake house. This property is registered as the residence of Federal District Court Judge Victoria Mitchell. You're attempting unauthorized entry into a federal judge's residence. A federal offense under 28 U.S.C. Section 566. Federal judge? Lauren laughed. Victoria's not a judge. She does courthouse paperwork. Deputy Chin pulled out credentials. Ma'am, I'm U.S. Deputy Marshal James Chin, assigned to Judge Mitchell's security detail. This is her protected residence. Do you have authorization from Judge Mitchell? Lauren's face cycled through emotions. She's really a federal judge? Yes. Federal District Court for D.C. Do you have authorization? She's my sister. Of course I do. This is the family lake house. That's not how federal property law works. This is owned by Judge Mitchell and registered as a judicial residence with enhanced security. Unauthorized entry is a federal crime. I need identification from all of you. Mom stepped forward. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. Ma'am, your identification please. As deputies checked IDs and prepared citations, more family arrived. Cousin Mark. Aunt Barbara. The caterers. All stopped by deputies. All receiving the same explanation. Federal judge's protected residence. Trespassing. Citations. The caterers left immediately, threatening to sue Lauren for the deposit. Lauren was nearly screaming. Victoria, I know you're watching. Come out and tell them this is a family house. I opened the front door. Lauren's relief was immediate. Finally. Tell them this is a mistake. You're not allowed here. You organized an event without my permission. You distributed keys without authorization. You posted federal property on social media when you have no ownership interest. I'm your sister. You're trespassing on federal property. Deputy Chin, proceed with citations. Mom looked stricken. Victoria, you're really a federal judge? Why didn't you tell us? I did. 4 years ago when I was nominated. You said, that's nice dear, and changed the subject to Lauren's marketing job. I invited everyone to my confirmation hearing. No one came. We didn't know it was important. A federal judgeship is one of the highest honors in law. It's a lifetime appointment. It came with extensive background checks, Senate confirmation, and enhanced security protocols, including protected residence status. Lauren stared at the notices. So you're like, actually important? I'm a U.S. Federal District Court judge. I preside over federal criminal and civil cases. I make constitutional rulings. And this property is registered as my judicial residence. Unauthorized entry isn't just trespassing. It's a federal offense. We didn't know. You didn't ask. You assumed I was unimportant enough that you could commandeer my property. You made key copies. You've been using this house for parties. You posted it on social media, creating security risks. Then you organized a 30-person gathering without consent. Deputy Chin handed Lauren a citation. Ma'am, you're being cited for attempted unauthorized entry into a federal judge's residence. Federal violation. Court summons within 30 days. Court summons. Lauren went pale. Federal magistrate court. You'll need to appear or hire an attorney. Mom received a citation. My brother-in-law. Everyone who'd attempted entry. This is crazy. Lauren said. We're family. Family doesn't make it legal, Chen said. The law protecting federal judges' residences exists because of security threats. You compromised Judge Mitchell's security by distributing keys, posting her property on social media, organizing unauthorized gatherings. How much are these fines? My brother-in-law asked. Up to $1,000 per violation plus potential criminal charges if the U.S. attorney prosecutes. Given multiple violations, key copying, unauthorized entry attempts, security compromises, the U.S. attorney's office will review the case. Lauren looked faint. Criminal charges? Potentially. Judge Mitchell would need to request prosecution. I looked at my sister, my mother, the family scattered around holding citations. I want every key destroyed. Every social media post deleted. Written acknowledgement that you have no ownership interest. And every person who received a key signs a statement they won't attempt access again. Or what? Lauren asked weakly. Or I request full federal prosecution. Criminal charges. Possible jail time. Permanent federal records. Revelation. The family stood in my driveway, citations in hand, reality sinking in. Mom spoke first. Victoria, we genuinely didn't understand. You said judge, but we thought traffic court or something. Federal district court judges are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Lifetime appointments. We handle major federal cases. Civil rights, constitutional challenges, federal criminal prosecutions. I've presided over international fraud, public corruption, organized crime cases. Oh my God, Aunt Susan said. Those are serious. Yes. Which is why my residence requires enhanced security. Why unauthorized entry is federal offense. Why Lauren distributing keys and posting my address on Instagram created actual security risks. Lauren scrolled her phone frantically. I need to delete these posts now. Screenshots already taken for the federal case file, Chen noted. Deleting now won't erase security compromises. I'm so sorry, Lauren said, sounding genuine for the first time. I really didn't know. I thought you just worked at a courthouse. I didn't realize you were actually important. Important enough that threatening me, which some posts could be interpreted as doing, carries serious federal penalties. Important enough that people I've sentenced have reasons to want to know where I live. Important enough that you broadcasting my location could have put me in actual danger. Color drained from Lauren's face. I didn't mean. You didn't think. You assumed this property was communal because you couldn't imagine I'd be successful enough to own it myself. Mom was crying. How much did this cost? $2.1 million 5 years ago. Worth $2.8 million now. Silence. You bought a $3 million house and we didn't know? Lauren asked. You didn't ask. Every time I mention work you changed the subject. You've never asked about my cases, career or life. Deputy Chen checked his watch. Judge Mitchell, we need to clear the property. Everyone needs to leave immediately. Wait, Mom said. Can we talk? Inside. No. You're all trespassers cited for federal violations. You're not entering my home. Victoria, please, Lauren said. I made a huge mistake. Can we fix this? Here's how you fix this. Everyone signs statements acknowledging no rights to this property. Everyone submits to U.S. Marshal interviews about how they obtained keys. Everyone deletes social media posts and provides phone records proving deletion. Everyone pays citation fines without complaint. And then? Lauren asked. And then maybe I don't request criminal prosecution. Maybe. Resolution. Over the next week, every cited family member complied. They signed statements. They submitted to interviews. They deleted posts and provided phone records. They paid fines $800 each. Lauren paid $1,200 because she distributed keys. The U.S. Marshal Service completed a full security review. They upgraded systems, added monitoring and flagged my file for enhanced protection. Deputy Chen's report concluded, subject's family created significant security vulnerabilities through key distribution and social media exposure. Violations were due to ignorance rather than malice, but security compromises were severe. Recommend continued monitoring and no family access to judicial residence. The U.S. Attorney's Office reviewed the case and decided not to pursue criminal charges, given cooperation and lack of criminal intent. But citations remained on federal records. Lauren called 2 weeks later. I'm so sorry, Victoria. I was selfish and thoughtless and I almost got us arrested. You did get cited for federal violations. Those don't go away. I know. I hired a lawyer. He says fines will stick, but if I stay out of trouble it won't affect my life much. But Victoria, I had no idea you were so successful. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. You weren't interested. I'm interested now. Now that you've been cited by U.S. Marshals for trying to break into my house? Silence. I need you to understand something. I bought this house because I needed a secure, private place away from threats that come with my job. I've sentenced people to decades in prison. I've made enemies. This house isn't a vacation spot. It's a protected residence because my safety matters. I never thought about it that way. You never thought about me at all. Just what you could take. She didn't call again. Mom sent an email 3 weeks later. I've been thinking about the incident. I'm ashamed we never asked about your career. I'm ashamed I missed your confirmation. Can we start over? I replied, we can be in contact. But you're never accessing my lake house again. That boundary is permanent. He accepted it. 6 months passed. Security upgrades held. No more family attempts to access the property. No more social media posts. No more assumptions that my success was communal. I received a promotion, chief judge of my district court, at 42, one of the youngest chief judges in the circuit. I didn't announce it to family. They found out when it made legal news. Lauren texted, congratulations on chief judge. That's amazing. I googled what it means this time. I replied, thank you. Nothing more needed. The lake house remained mine. Secure, private, entirely off limits to family who'd learned the expensive lesson that assumptions about access don't create legal rights. The federal citations they received were permanent reminders. Property ownership matters. Security matters. And federal judges' residences aren't family vacation homes. They're protected federal properties with serious legal consequences. They'd assumed I was small enough, unimportant enough, that my house could be their house. The federal notices posted on my door told a different story. So did the U.S. Marshal vehicles that still occasionally patrolled. So did the Title 28 U.S.C. Section 566 citations they'd all received. My family learned that assumptions don't grant access. And federal law doesn't care about family entitlement.
I didn't expect a thank you, but I didn't expect exile either. It started with a dinner invitation. One of those half-obligated, half-passive-aggressive things my family does when they want something. The house smelled like cinnamon and guilt, and Paige, my sister, was already on her 3rd glass of wine talking about Sedona like it was some kind of holy land. 15,000, Mom said casually like she was reading off a grocery list. It's an energy reset, a spiritual cleanse. You know how much Paige has carried for this family. I didn't respond right away. I just stirred my tea, watching the lemon wedge sink. Dad glanced at me like he was bracing for a problem. You said you were liquidating that savings account, he said. You mentioned it last month. What's the holdup? I looked up. Calm, steady. I didn't fund the retreat, I said. I used the money to start something, a nonprofit. The room went still, like a power outage had cut through every line of polite silence. A nonprofit, Mom repeated like the word itself was sour. For what? Free trauma-informed counseling. For women who can't afford therapy. It's called The Quiet Ground. Paige laughed into her wine glass. You're kidding. I'm not, I said. Dad leaned back, his jaw tight. You used family money. It was my money, I corrected. You chose strangers over your sister, Mom said, standing now. You've always needed to be the center of something, even grief. I didn't argue. I knew better. When love becomes performance the moment you stop playing your part, you're not needed anymore. That night, they removed me from the family group chat, blocked me from the retreat RSVP. No calls, no questions, just a silent decision dressed up as spiritual boundaries. I didn't even cry, but I did write one sentence in my notebook before I turned off the light. They didn't want me gone. They wanted me small. It didn't start with the nonprofit, or the retreat, or even the silence after. It started years before that. Slowly, softly, in ways you can't prove, until one day you realize no one says your name at dinner anymore, and no one notices. I was 13 the first time I felt it. Paige had forgotten her flute at school. I had just gotten first place in the state essay competition. Mom walked in holding her car keys, coat still on, and said, "Elena, could you warm up leftovers? I need to take your sister back to campus." No one asked about the medal in my backpack. I didn't offer. Later that night, I remember standing at the sink scraping old sauce from the edge of a plate and hearing them laugh in the carport, Paige and Mom. They always laughed like that when I wasn't around. It kept happening. Holidays came and went. Paige got weekend trips and spa gift cards. I got... You understand, right? Paige has been going through a lot. And maybe she had. I don't know, but I had my own lot too. It just didn't look good on Instagram. By college, I stopped bringing things home. Good grades, research assistant jobs, offers to speak at campus events. They never asked, and I never wanted to explain why I wasn't the fun one. When Dad's memory started slipping, I stayed in town. Paige didn't. She was exploring boundaries. I was sorting medication, canceling his Amazon autoship, and trying to convince Mom that forgetting names wasn't just being tired. Mom said I had always been the caretaker. Like that was a compliment. But caretaking in our house was just the polite word for cleaning up after people who never thanked you. There were no slaps, no slammed doors, just 1,000 paper cuts carefully placed over time. I remember birthdays where the cake was vanilla even though I hated vanilla. Cards signed, "Love you girls" with only Paige underlined. And always, always that look Mom gave me when I pushed back even a little. The "why can't you just let things go" look. So I started letting things go. Expectations, invitations, hope. I stopped offering to help with retreats or fundraisers, stopped trying to explain what my work actually involved, stopped waiting for someone to say thank you when I stayed 3 hours late to fix Dad's medical bills because Paige was recharging in nature. And when I finally told them about the quiet ground, it wasn't to win approval. It was just what I had built, brick by brick, session by session, breath by breath. Mom tilted her head and said, "It's good you're finding purpose. Just don't let it become your whole personality." I smiled, nodded. That's what I always did. Kept the peace. Made the tea. Bit the inside of my cheek until the words faded away. Because in this family, invisibility wasn't punishment. It was the price of staying allowed in the room. The quiet ground didn't begin as a mission. It started as a coping mechanism. A place where I could breathe without someone asking if I was okay, just so they could say I wasn't. One rented room, a cracked linoleum floor, 2 mismatched chairs, and a folding table I pulled from someone's curb. The first week, no one came. The second week, one woman showed up. Sat on the edge of the chair like she was expecting to be judged for needing a place like this. She didn't talk much, just cried into a paper napkin and said, "I don't want to explain myself again." I told her she didn't have to. That was our beginning. She came back, then brought her neighbor, then a cousin. None of them had insurance. Some didn't have phones. One walked 20 blocks every Thursday in shoes that didn't fit. They didn't say thank you. They said things like, "This is the only place I don't have to apologize for how long I've been stuck." And that was enough. I didn't have donors or partnerships or business cards with raised lettering. But I had a kettle that mostly worked and a shelf of dog-eared books. And people came. I built it between freelance gigs, editing grants, formatting resumes, answering customer service emails under a fake name. Whatever paid just enough to keep the lights on. And when they went off for a week, we met by candlelight. No one complained. That's the thing about survival work. It rarely looks impressive. No branded merchandise, no banner, no yoga on the roof. Just a circle of chairs and the courage to sit inside your own story without flinching. Meanwhile, Paige was soaring. She launched a wellness brand, had a podcast, interviews, ambassadors. She wore linen and quoted Rumi and lit sage on camera while calling it ancestral renewal. Mom watched every video, forwarded me the highlights, sometimes with messages like, "You and your sister are both doing such good work in your own ways." It stung. Not because I wanted her to be proud of me, but because she equated candlelight support groups with sponsored content and detox juice, as if impact could be measured in likes. The last time I heard her voice before everything fell apart, it came through voicemail. She said Paige had found a retreat program that would elevate her emotional frequency but needed help covering the tuition. I had just finished leading a group for survivors of religious abuse. We sat on the floor with peppermint tea and shared the things we weren't allowed to say in childhood. I walked home in the dark and pressed play. Elena, I know your little project is important to you, but Paige is doing this for all of us. You could really step up here. It's what family does. She called it a little project and still expected me to fund the glow-up. The email subject line said celebrating women who heal, an evening of resilience and light. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the name, Paige Vale, and just beneath it in gold serif font co-founder The Quiet Ground. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not partner, not collaborator, founder, as if she'd built it herself brick by quiet brick. The flyer was beautiful professional, warm beige and soft lavender tones. Photos from inside the space our circle chairs, our tea shelf, our community wall. I didn't even know anyone had taken pictures. At the bottom there was a quote, "Healing starts where judgment ends. Paige Vale." I had written those exact words on a sticky note last winter posted on the bulletin board beside the exit door. She had turned it into branding. I tried calling the listed number. No answer. I emailed. Twice. Nothing. Then a few days later, someone showed up at my office. Early morning. Bright-eyed brisk, wearing a flowing cardigan and holding a ring light under one arm. "Hi," she beamed. "We're filming a short promo for the gala. Paige said this space captures the essence of the journey. Would it be okay if we just grabbed a few shots?" She was already halfway through the front door when I blocked her path. "Excuse me, what did Paige tell you this was?" Her voice stuttered. "The community site for her healing initiative. She said you helped anchor the logistics." The logistics. I didn't answer. I didn't explain. I just told her to leave, calmly, firmly, and locked the door behind her. That evening, I checked our nonprofit email again. A new message was sitting at the top of the inbox. Attached a copy of Paige's grant application to the Wellness Equity Fund. The cover page had our logo pixelated from being copied too many times. 14 pages of budget projections, event programming, and press language. My name was there too, not as founder, not even as co-director, just program support. E. Vale Independent Contractor. I scrolled to the signature block. There it was, Paige's name signed in lavender ink. She had requested $25,000 for my work, for our space. And no one had said a word to me. Not Mom, not Paige, not the funders, not the organizers. They hadn't ignored me. They had absorbed me, folded my life's work into her storyline like it had always belonged there. That night, I opened a bottle of grocery store red and drank it straight from the bottle. No music, no lights. Just me, a locked door, and the growing clarity that they hadn't returned because they cared. They had returned because I had finally become useful. I didn't decide to go right away. At first, I told myself it didn't matter, that I had better things to do than walk into a room full of people who didn't know my name at an event built on work I had bled for. But then the confirmation email came through. The grant had been approved, $25,000 issued under Paige's name for a program she did not create. That's when I stopped waiting for clarity. There was no misunderstanding, no crossed wires, no innocent mix-up. This was theft draped in wellness language and pastel font. So I made a plan. Not dramatic, just precise. I gathered everything: emails, original documents, screenshots, timestamps. I forwarded them to the Grant Foundation, to the venue coordinator, to a lawyer I knew from a pro bono network. Then I ordered a ticket. The gala was held at the Parkhurst Ballroom, one of those over-renovated landmarks turned event space where you can smell the money in the wallpaper. The lighting was soft rose. The tables were round and overdressed. Everyone wore cream or charcoal. I came in quiet, head-down seat near the back. I didn't need a spotlight. I just needed them to see the truth. Paige took the stage right on schedule. She looked perfect, flowy dress, barefoot in a way that said expensive freedom. Her hair curled like a woman too grounded to care about approval. The room leaned in when she spoke. This journey, she said hand to chest, didn't begin with ambition. It began with ache. I created the Quiet Ground to honor the women who never got to speak. My throat tightened. Someone near me whispered, "She's so authentic." She wasn't even nervous. That's what stung most. Then, right before the award presentation, a man in a dark suit walked across the stage. No introduction. No fanfare. Just one sealed envelope. Paige took it without looking up, still smiling for the room. She opened it mid-sentence as if it were a note from the lighting crew. Her eyes flickered across the page. Once. Twice. Her mouth froze mid-word. The screen behind her set to loop testimonials sputtered, then glitched, then changed. A document came into focus. It was her grant proposal. Unedited. Unredacted. 14 pages. Slide 1, the false team list. My name listed beneath hers. Slide 2, our tea room with the caption Paige's original trauma-informed design. Slide 3, a screenshot of my original email to the state office dated a year before she claimed to have envisioned the program. There was no sound. No coughing. No clinking of forks. Only the hum of the projector and Paige's breathing shallow, broken, exposed. And then, a voice from the crowd. I can verify that email, someone said. It was Professor Levingston, my trauma ethics advisor from grad school. I supervised Elena's first pilot. This was never Paige's to present. Silence turned. Not sharply. Not like an attack. It shifted like weight sliding off a table, slow and irreversible. Paige tried to recover. Said something about shared inspiration. About the work evolving beyond ownership. But no one clapped. The mic cut out. The host stepped in with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes, thanking everyone for the beautiful energy. They pivoted to a raffle. For a chakra-infused water bottle. People clapped again, but not for her. I stayed in my seat. Still. Steady. I didn't need a speech. The truth had finally spoken on its own, and for once they were all listening. I didn't stay for dessert. Didn't wait for the awkward group photo or the vegan tiramisu served in recycled glass jars. I left before the lights came back up, before anyone remembered I was there. Outside, the street was quiet. My car was parked 3 blocks away, too far for heels, but I didn't mind. The night air felt like rinsing off something that had been stuck to my skin too long. When I got home, I turned on one light and left the rest off. The quiet ground was exactly how I'd left it, still calm, soft lit from a hallway lamp I bought for $10 at a yard sale. I walked past the chairs, the bookshelf, the small basket of wool socks for clients who forgot theirs. Everything we'd built was still standing, still intact. That meant more than any award ever could. I checked the inbox. There it was, an email from the Wellness Equity Fund, funding suspended, review initiated. They thanked me for my documentation and requested a meeting to understand how the misrepresentation occurred. I made tea and let the kettle whistle a little longer than necessary. Just before bed, my phone buzzed, a message from my mother. We didn't know she lied. Paige told us you weren't ready for public responsibility, that you didn't want your name on anything. I stared at the text, and in a moment of complete clarity, I realized she meant that. They really believed it. They believed I'd hand over everything I'd built quietly and visibly, just like always. I didn't respond. I closed my phone, placed it face down on the bookshelf, and opened my notebook instead. I wrote down a sentence I'd heard in group the week before from a woman who had never said much until that night. It's not that I stopped wanting them to understand. I just stopped needing them to. I underlined it twice. That's where I was now. Not angry, not vindicated, just done. Done with shrinking so someone else could stretch. Done with being the backstage girl in my own story. The next morning, I opened the front door and let in the early light. 2 new names were already on the calendar, both first-time clients, both women who had found us by accident. There are no accidents in healing, just the quiet decision to walk through a door that no one else opened for you. And this time, the door was mine. 2 weeks passed. The inbox quieted. The hashtags faded. Paige hadn't posted since the gala. The apology never came. But a message did. Hey, things have been rough. Any chance I could film something at the nonprofit? Just one short reel. For context. To show I'm still doing the work. Still doing the work. Like it had never been mine. I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either. Instead, I got up, walked to the front door, and took down the old Welcome All sign. Not because it wasn't true, but because it needed clarity. I replaced it with something smaller. A plain wooden plaque. No script font, no pastel colors, just 6 words hand-carved sanded at the edges. This space is not for optics. That afternoon, I hosted a new circle, 3 women. No introductions, just tea, a breath, and the courage to sit still. One of them looked around the room and said, "I don't know why this place feels safe, but it does." I smiled, didn't explain, because truth doesn't need a logo, or a reel, or a forgiveness tour. It just needs time, and quiet, and someone who refuses to let the story be rewritten. I used to beg for love that came with conditions. Now I open the door, and if they ask if this is the quiet ground, I say yes. But I don't say who built it. I let the stillness answer for me. They asked me to take the family photos, said I had a steady hand. "You're always so reliable." Mom smiled, slipping the strap of the camera around my neck. "Try to get everyone before dessert." I looked down at the list she handed me, group shots, candids, one big reunion photo in front of the fountain. Printed in bold at the top, Langford Family 2024 Reunion, hosted by Olivia Langford and guests. Guests. I guess that's what I was now. They hadn't even given me a seat. The tables were arranged in a wide semicircle on the back lawn, crisp white linens catching the afternoon sun. I counted them 9 full rounds, 8 seats each, all with place cards in careful cursive. Not a single one had my name. "Hey, Grace," Uncle Ron called out, lifting his wine glass. "Can you get a shot of this table? Olivia really knocked it out of the park, huh?" I nodded and raised the camera, framing them like strangers. I'd RSVP'd early. I'd flown in. I'd even brought a gift, a hand-bound album I'd spent weeks compiling, full of scanned photos from past reunions. I didn't see it anywhere on the welcome table. I did see Olivia in a linen jumpsuit and block heels, walking with purpose between guests. She was glowing. Of course she was. The golden child always knew where the light was. "Can you believe she got us this resort?" Aunt Margie whispered behind me. Her connections really came through. The corner of my mouth twitched. Connections. Right. I turned toward the garden path that led to my assigned room. It wasn't in the main lodge or even the guest villas. It was a converted maintenance shed behind the pool house. Temporary staff quarters, the clerk had called it apologetically. Room 12B, no view, no toiletries. But it did have a thin set of twin beds and a stack of folded towels, the kind you'd find in employee housing. I sat on the edge of the mattress, still holding the camera. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd remembered just enough to use me. And somehow that was worse. I wasn't always the one behind the camera. There are photos. Faded, overexposed snapshots from the 80s, where I'm front and center, gap-toothed, muddy-kneed, clutching a papier-mâché volcano or a spelling bee ribbon. In those, Mom's hand rests on my shoulder. Her smile is real if distant. Then Olivia was born. 4 years younger, she came with glitter and praise. Wide eyes, perfect curls, a laugh that echoed like wind chimes. People bent toward her naturally. They always have. I was 9 when Mom first used the phrase, "let her have her moment." It was my piano recital. I had practiced Claire de Lune for weeks. Olivia, 5 at the time, interrupted halfway through to do a twirl in front of the living room. Everyone clapped. I finished the piece in silence. At 10, I brought home a handmade card for Mother's Day watercolor and pressed lavender. Olivia gave her a song. Off-key, forgettable. Mom cried. "You girls are so different," she'd say, looking at us like we were flavors she couldn't quite reconcile. Grace is steady. Olivia is sunshine. I learned what to be. Helpful, uncomplicated, quiet. By high school, I stopped asking them to come to my debates. Olivia was always in something theater cheer, some club Mom had to bake for. I once overheard Dad tell a neighbor, "Grace, she's our grounded one. Doesn't need much attention." That wasn't true. I just learned how to go without it. College was a scramble of scholarships, dorm jobs, late-night tutoring sessions. I didn't come home for breaks. I couldn't afford to financially or emotionally. Olivia stayed local, took a gap year, dated musicians, artists, flirted with acting. When she posted a moody black and white portrait captioned, "Not all who wander are lost," Mom shared it on Facebook with my brilliant baby. When Dad's consulting firm collapsed in 2010, it was me they called. Their voices trembled on the phone. The house might go. We just need a buffer, just a little help. I wired $5,000 that night, then another $5,000 the next month. Over a year, I sent nearly $30,000, skipped vacations, deferred my student loans. They kept the house. No one mentioned it again. Later, when Mom had a minor health scare, a word she liked to use like a leash, she hinted at hospital bills piling up. Olivia had just gotten engaged to a tech startup guy named Matthew. She wanted to recreate Grandma's ring, but didn't have the funds. 2 weeks later, I sent $15,000. I got a thank you card. Signed, Love Mom. No return address. The ring showed up on Olivia's Instagram a month later. Oval cut set in platinum captioned, Family Traditions Reborn. No one tagged me. When I asked gently just once about the medical expenses, Mom replied, I thought you gave it freely. Then added, it's not like you have children to worry about. That's how it always went. My usefulness was mentioned only when needed. My silence was expected. My stability assumed. I was the one who remembered birthdays, who sent thoughtful gifts, who paid for Aunt Rachel's surgery when her insurance lapsed. The one who organized a virtual memorial when Grandpa died during the lockdown. I wasn't invited to the in-person gathering they held later. There were restrictions, Olivia said. You wouldn't have wanted to risk it. That was the year I stopped sending holiday cards. No one noticed. I moved cities, launched my own business. Quietly, deliberately, I began acquiring boutique properties in distressed markets, hotels, inns, beach houses with potential. The Langford family had always vacationed at the coast. Same place, same porch, same traditions. That resort had come up for sale 6 months ago. I recognized the name instantly. Drove out alone, walked the grounds, smelled the mildew in the curtains, saw the sagging deck rails. It was tired, forgotten, just like I'd been. I bought it anyway, closed through a holding company, rebranded discreetly, began renovations. And when I saw the family email from Olivia, guess what? I got us the perfect venue for this year's reunion. Trust me, you're going to love it. I said nothing. Let them book it. Let them gather on ground they thought was theirs. I didn't need an invitation. I already had the keys. Success came quietly. There was no breakthrough moment, no champagne cork or viral article. Just years of showing up, saving, learning when to speak and when to let other people take credit, letting my name stay small while my value grew behind the scenes. I lived alone in a top-floor apartment I never showed on social media. The view wasn't dramatic, just a narrow stretch of skyline framed by telephone wires, but it was mine, paid in full. I traveled when I wanted to, worked when I chose, took meetings in quiet cafes, negotiated contracts in my own name, bought small buildings others had written off, turned them, held some, let others go. I never told anyone in the family what I did. The last time I tried years ago, Mom blinked and said, "Oh, like Airbnb?" I said yes. It was easier. I heard Olivia had started a lifestyle blog, then a podcast, then some kind of consulting. She posted selfies in airports and wrote captions about gratitude. Her voice was everywhere, even when she wasn't saying anything. Mine stayed where it had always been, off to the side, working. When the property listing came across my desk, I recognized it before I read the address. Seacliff Grove Inn, once a family staple. Beige clapboard siding, rocking chairs on every porch, a fountain that never quite worked. The place with mosquito bites, board games, and the scent of low tide. Where Dad grilled too much corn and Mom insisted Olivia had the voice of an angel during beach karaoke. I hadn't been back in over a decade. The resort was in distress financially, structurally, cosmetically. Years of neglect under new management, occupancy down, reviews sour. The owners were desperate. I bought it in silence, not for nostalgia, not for revenge. I bought it because I could. A shell company handled the paperwork. I kept the staff, approved modest renovations. New linens, fresh paint, better lighting. I didn't change the name. I didn't need to. I told no one, not even when I saw the group booking come through. Langford Family Reunion, 42 guests, submitted by Olivia Langford. Email signature, Olivia Langford. Lifestyle curator and event strategist. That made me laugh. Just once, sharp and low. The staff prepped the space, upgraded a few rooms, Offered the family a promotional package through my firm's hospitality division. Olivia accepted. Called it a favor from a friend in the industry. I let her believe that. I even ensured she got the suite with the balcony, the good light, and the wine fridge. She would expect that. She always did. I didn't ask for a room. I didn't call ahead. I simply showed up luggage in hand and watched the front desk clerk pause as my name lit up the screen. Her eyes widened slightly. Ms. Langford. Of course. She handed me the keys to room 12B. Temporary staff housing, 2 twin beds, 1 window. I nodded, said thank you, and walked toward the back of the property. No protest, no correction. Let them play their parts. Let them think I was there by accident. I arrived at the welcome dinner 10 minutes early. No one noticed. The courtyard was dressed in fairy lights, rented drapery, and thin optimism. Paper lanterns bobbed above the buffet tables. Folded menus bore Olivia's signature in looping gold script. A cousin I hadn't seen in years greeted me with vague warmth, the kind reserved for distant aunts or tolerated exes. I returned the smile, said nothing. Aunt Margie waved me over to rearrange folding chairs. I did. A niece handed me a stack of napkins and whispered, "Aunt Olivia said you know how to fold these the fancy way." I didn't, but I nodded. My name wasn't on the place cards. Again. I found a seat at the overflow table tucked near the back beside the restroom sign and a struggling potted fern. No centerpiece, no candle. Across the lawn, Olivia twirled in a blush silk maxi dress, hugging relatives, fielding compliments, curating photos over her shoulder. Every few minutes someone raised a glass to her. She planned this entire weekend. She negotiated the group rate herself. Her taste, it's just impeccable. I cut into my chicken, chewed slowly. Midway through the meal, a staff member approached the head table. He was young, nervous, holding a clipboard. I recognized him from the resort orientation packets. He whispered something to Olivia, who blinked, then said, "That's not what we discussed." The labels were supposed to be in rose gold, not silver. The server apologized. She waved him away. A few minutes later, another staffer approached me. She looked vaguely familiar. Front desk, maybe housekeeping. She paused beside my table, eyes scanning a printed list. Then she leaned down. "Ms. Langford. Just wanted to confirm tomorrow's brunch layout. 6 long tables, printed programs, no alcohol until after speeches." I glanced up. "That's fine." She nodded. "We've added your name to the staff directory. Any changes, just text me directly." Then she walked away. No one at my table reacted. No one had heard her. But I sat back just slightly and let the weight of that moment settle. They still had me listed in the system, not as a guest, not as family, as the owner. They didn't know, but the walls did, the floorboards did. The windows, the locks, the contract that paid for every chair, every napkin, every lantern they now called beautiful, they all knew. And tomorrow, so would everyone else. Brunch was held in the garden pavilion. Soft jazz played over the speakers. The tables were dressed in ivory linen with eucalyptus runners. Centerpieces of white peonies stood in crystal vases. A backdrop near the stage read the Langford Legacy in looping cursive. I arrived late on purpose. Most of the family was already seated, filling coffee cups, flipping through printed programs that Olivia had designed. She stood at the podium near the stage, beaming as the event manager handed her a clipboard. Matthew, her fiancé, trailed behind her like a well-trained shadow. They looked like a magazine spread. I slipped into a chair near the rear. No one noticed. The manager tapped the microphone. "Before we begin, we'd like to thank the venue for going above and beyond in hosting this special weekend. The staff, the presentation, the coordination, every detail has been exceptional. Polite applause." He continued. "And most of all, we're honored to recognize our newest partner and majority shareholder, the person who made this weekend possible." He turned slightly, raised his glass, to Ms. Grace Langford. Silence. Chairs creaked, forks paused mid-air. A few heads turned toward the back. My name hung in the air, suspended like dust. I stood. Not quickly, just enough to be seen. Olivia blinked, her mouth opened, then closed. Mom stared at me like I'd spoken in a language she didn't understand. I didn't raise my glass. I didn't smile. I walked slowly toward the stage heels, quiet on stone. The manager stepped aside. Olivia remained frozen, still holding the clipboard. I stopped near the microphone, didn't touch it. "I hope you're enjoying brunch," I said. My voice carried not loud, but clear. "I'm glad everyone made it this year. It's a beautiful space, excellent food, good light for photos." A few nervous chuckles. I looked around the pavilion. When I bought this property 6 months ago, I didn't know the family would return here. But when I saw the group booking come through under Olivia's name, I approved it. I turned to her. "At a discount." Olivia flushed. Matthew reached for her elbow, but she pulled away. "I didn't change the name." I continued. "Didn't need to. I just paid for the things that matter: the foundation, the roof, the staff, the chairs." I let the silence stretch. For a while, I wondered if I should say something, if I should clarify my role. But then I realized you already had a version of me that worked better. The helper, the extra hand, the one with the camera. Mom's face shifted confusion, then something sharper. She opened her mouth. I raised my hand. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just don't want to be invisible anymore." I stepped back, left the microphone untouched. As I turned, I saw Claire, my cousin, watching me from 2 tables over. She nodded. Just once. It was enough. I walked out of the pavilion without a word, past the fountain, past the long buffet line, past the chalkboard sign that read, "Welcome home." The air smelled like citrus and apology. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps, no applause. Only the sound of silverware being quietly set down. I didn't go back to the pavilion. I walked past the check-in desk, past the empty front porch where rocking chairs creaked gently in the breeze. My suitcase was already packed. I had planned to leave after brunch regardless of what happened. The valet didn't ask for my ticket. He recognized me now. As I stepped toward the car, I heard footsteps behind me. Grace. I didn't turn. "Grace, wait." Mom's voice. I stopped but didn't face her. She came up beside me out of breath, holding her purse like a shield. Her blouse was rumpled, one earring missing. She looked smaller in daylight. "You didn't have to make a scene," she said quietly. "You could have told us privately." I kept my gaze on the gravel drive. "I did tell you," I said. "Every time I helped, every time I stayed quiet. That was me telling you." She swallowed. "This weekend was for family." I nodded. "And I'm family." She hesitated. "I don't know what you want me to say. You don't need to say anything." I opened the car door. She touched my arm. "You embarrassed Olivia." I looked at her then. She embarrassed herself. I got in, closed the door. Through the window, I watched her take a step back. Her mouth moved, but no words came. After a moment, she turned and walked away, not quickly, not defiantly. Just slowly, like someone who wasn't sure where to go. The car pulled forward, past the garden where Olivia posed for someone else's camera now, past the sign that still bore our name. The resort would host other families, other reunions, other people who understood how to see each other fully. But I wouldn't be among them. Not anymore. I didn't leave angry. I left full. Of memory. Of clarity. Of silence that finally belonged to me. Maybe you've been there too. Standing at the edge of a family you kept trying to belong to. Maybe you've handed over time, money, years just to stay in the frame. And maybe, like me, you learned that walking away doesn't mean you gave up. It means you stopped waiting to be erased. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who understands. Someone who's had to build peace from silence. And if you're still finding your voice, know this. You are not alone, and you were never invisible, not here, not to us.